This is for the others out there, the other ambitious people who want to play at a higher level in their life. It's time to get curious and get real. Join me, and together, let's find the others. Daniel, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me here, man. It's a pleasure.
So good. I'm so glad we got to do this in person.
It did. It was a surprise.
The way it worked out
Yeah.
was just awesome.
It was like 1 week ago, right?
It was literally a week ago. We were having this conversation like, okay, let's get you on the podcast. Maybe one day we'll do a podcast now, and then maybe one day we'll do it again in person. Or when you come out to San Diego, you get out to the West Coast, we'll do it in the studio. And then you're like, yo, my girl's coming out to San Diego next week. Like,
I was like, let me hop on. Let me hop on that train. I'm already jealous. I might as well fulfill that little need too, to be out in California.
I love it. Well, welcome. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you, my friend.
And this is the first time that we're catching up in person. I mean, we've, it's been cool because like we met once for a week. I mean, really, we had a handful of conversations for a week, and then we started building a relationship after that. And this is we haven't met up in person since then, right?
No, it's been, what was that, 2023? So it's like a year and a half.
Yeah,
right?
almost 2 years. Yeah,
just January.
Yeah, January. Yeah. So tell us about where were we last when we were talking?
Where we're at? Well, currently we're here on planet Earth.
That's right.
Right, in our shoes, in our space. But where we're at mentally and emotionally right now is really a positive place.
Good.
Obviously, not the audience doesn't know, but I was in a way different space physically during that time. I was dealing with a major knee injury. Literally just had surgery 8 weeks prior to going there.
So grounded. So we were in Spain.
We were in Spain.
In the mountains.
Yep. Spain in the mountains, right? In the wintertime, not like Barcelona.
That's right.
Like,
not Ibiza partying.
Isn't like just chilling on the beach kind of stuff. It's like walking up and doing like the mountain trails. And I mean, we weren't in the same group during that time.
For the Wim Hof.
There were kind of like different mini groups within the bit larger community that was there. But we kind of just, I think we met one time like over lunch, right? And we just kind of were just talking, and it really like kind of formed a connection there. And it was like one of those bonds straight up where you're like, oh, this could be a brother.
This is my brother.
Yeah.
I love that. Just to double tap that for a second. I feel like it's such a special thing when you meet people and you're just like, oh yeah, we're vibing. And then we found out we were both Jewish, and we were like, oh, that's it. Now we're really family.
Exactly.
But I love that. And so we were there for the Wim Hof certification, Wim Hof Method instructor. What do they call it? The training?
Like the master's
program,
module. Right?
Master's module for in person. And we also there was not a lot of US people there. I mean, we were two of maybe I don't know, 10.
Yeah, I mean around there.
Around 10 people out of 70 or 80 people in total. Yeah. So I think there's also like anybody that was from the US as well was just like, oh, cool. Like we have another shared language.
Of course.
Talking with people from, I mean, how many different countries were there? And of the 80 people, there was dozens of countries.
Absolutely. I mean, like one of our first identities we form, right, is like that national identity. In school, right? Pledge allegiance, you're American. Right. Especially as Americans too. There's kind of this almost innate feeling to be connected to your neighbor. And actually my mother, she's from Sweden. So I do have some of that like European upbringing as well. And I know in Sweden, not that just it's a cold country, but sometimes the people could seem like they're a little less warm to those they don't know. And I think that's just more of like being in a culture that is, what do you say, like more less diverse culturally and ethnically. Whereas in America, right, you come from so many different backgrounds, you have to be open to trying something new, right? Meeting a new person,
right?
Because most of all of us come from somewhere else. So that's kind of like our first identity. So whenever you meet an American overseas, you're like automatically have that connection,
that's
right?
So good. Okay, I got a question for you. So when you talk about identities, like what are the different identities that you have now in your life, or maybe how have they evolved throughout your life? Because I feel like you've lived many lives in your one life so far.
Yeah, totally. I think we all go through our own like deaths and rebirth cycles, throughout our lives. And I feel like one of the identities that I've grown into now is as like a leader, right? And I always like to say as a healer too, even if that's not as say like a physician or someone else, like a nurse or someone else in that space, but a healer physically from my upbringing as well as my professional like start was as a personal trainer. So when you're as a personal trainer, right, you do become that person's, you could heal a lot of ailments, right? You could heal different things, whatever their goals are, right? Whether
Mm,
that's from losing weight, right? Or it's they're coming out of heart surgery, right? And they need to lower their blood pressure, all these different things, right? That can, you can heal those
mhm.
ailments in that way. Also, too, you become a little bit of like their therapist,
Yeah.
right? Because you form that close connection. Whenever you have a close connection, people share with you. And so I always try to be a confidant
Mm,
for my clients and for anyone that I know that they could feel comfortable opening and sharing for me. So in that way, I guess confidant as well
that's
with
great.
sharing that identity. And then also part of my identity is as a son, right? As a brother,
Mhm.
right? In this community and as an American, as we were like talking before, and Jewish, right? Swedish. There's many different identities. It's
Yeah.
not split personality. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
embracing all the aspects of self.
That's so cool,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I love that too around the identity of being a healer, and what does it mean to you to be a healer, and how do you see that role evolving in our society today?
Yeah. I mean, it's important. It's because so many of us now feel like there is something wrong with us, right?
Yeah.
Because we have all the amenities that we were taught we would need to be happy, right? To
Mm,
feel fulfilled, to succeed. Yet there's still that little part of us, maybe it's even a bigger part of us that we're not opening up to, that feels broken, right?
mhm,
And for me, in my story, right,
mm,
that's a lot how I felt in my life. You know, I lost my father at he's got cancer at 19, kind of like really formative years, going from like kind of that teenager to a man, and then
mhm,
he passed after his battle with cancer at 21.
mhm,
And I from that time I always had a story that I was telling myself,
mm,
which was that I had a hole in my heart.
mm,
Right. And I think a lot of us feel that way, whether it's a loss of a family member, whether it's a loss of a dream we had, like a career, a partner,
mhm,
right? Whatever it
mhm,
is, I know all of us, somewhere inside of us, have felt that
mm,
loss before and that brokenness,
yeah,
right? And going to the Wim Hof Method retreat, right, was the one of the major points of my life where I started to tell a different story,
mm,
not just to others, but also to myself. Right. And I even remember on the first day I was there and we had to do like our little like 10-minute speech, right? Or
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is, like talk about yourself, talk about Wim, and talk about the Wim Hof method. And part of my personal story was that I had this hole in my heart, right? And I did my speech, I did all of what it was, but that was the part, was that the Wim Hof method was starting to fill that up.
mm,
Fast forward to the third day we're there, right? Because it was on day one when we did
yeah,
like the speeches, like right away, get
just
into it,
right into
let's
it.
go. But day three, when we were doing this really heavy breath work, right? In the morning, we would do like hour,
Mhm,
way deeper than traditional Wim Hof method style of breathing. And I was just feeling so much physical pain from my
yeah,
knee at that time from doing all the um, athletic things that we were doing, like, you know, walking around, going into the ice bath, coming out, like coming out 8 weeks from surgery. It was very, very
I don't know how
difficult.
you did. I had the same surgery you did. I don't know how 8
Yeah.
weeks you were doing what
I
you're
was
doing,
in a
man.
cane. I was like,
Yeah.
I was just
You were
determined.
the swaggy dude that was walking with a cane, and you had a knee brace on too, and you're just like,
I did.
"Who is this guy?"
I
Like,
did. I
you
did.
just had this energy, this
Yeah,
aura
yeah,
about you, and the
yeah.
cane just sealed the
And
deal.
I think I had like orange like shades on
Yeah,
too. I was just
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
I was
this
like into it. I was
I
like in
love
my
it.
full Brooklyn mode
I
there.
love it.
But yeah, so I was in that time. It was so much pain during this breath work. And I had, I guess what you could say, like, was like a download. And the download, it came from a voice, right? Probably my subconscious coming out of me, right? Which happens when you're in very deep breath work. You start to quiet the mind and
Mhm.
open the, right? That deeper part of ourselves, the heart. And the voice, I interpreted as my father's voice.
Mm.
And I told me, right, myself, that that's not a hole in your heart. That's a home in your heart.
Oof.
That's where I live, right? My father told me that.
Oof, chills.
So that's how I
Oof.
felt. And I like that moment, wow, it broke me down so
Mm.
deeply. I
Mm.
was just releasing all this
Mm.
baggage I felt, not just from the pain of my surgery and my knee, but from the years, from his passing, the emotional pain that gets stuck in the body, right? And I could feel my chest, like I had always this constriction, on my chest, and I was starting to release, and I was just like opening.
Mm.
And from that time, I just released all this emotion and changed my story from having a hole in my heart to having a home in my heart.
Mm.
And that's something I always try to share. And when I do like any of my workshops or work with clients, is like, that hole is not just a hole, it's a home, right? It's a home where our loved ones live, or
Mm.
trials and tribulations of past remain
Mm.
right in there. And we take solace in knowing that a part of them, that whatever it is, lives on with you. And that was the major thing that I got from that. And it was really, really powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, no
I mean, I have
worries.
full body chills as you said that. That just hits so deeply. And I'm curious how, in the work that you're doing now, that's a very powerful story and
Mhm.
message to share with people. Like, how are you applying that to the work that you're doing now and helping people turn those holes in their heart into homes in their heart?
Right. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I think it all begins in awareness, right? If we're not aware of what
Mm.
the core issue is, we never are able to overcome that, right? And so that's the first part in becoming aware. And how do we become aware, right? We have to pause. We
Mm.
have to stop the train, right, from just keep going forward, right? We have to be that little bit of break in the clouds that allows the light to shine through.
Mm.
So that's the first part, right? Is becoming aware, taking that pause, and it begins with the breath. At least that's where it began with me,
Mhm.
right? And breath work intentionally forces you to pause, right? You can't be doing heavy breath work and running
Mhm.
a mile. That just
Mhm.
doesn't happen. You're going to pass out. It's going to be
Mhm.
a problem. So you have to calm down, right? You have to take your pause. And when you do that, if you allow yourself the opportunity to get past the initial resistance, which I feel as someone who
Always.
does breath work regularly, right? Meditation, there's always that part in the beginning where you're like, do I really have to do this today? Right? I just did it yesterday. I'm good, right? Don't
Yeah.
worry. You got it. You know who you are. But it's in those times especially where the
Mm.
real nudges come up, right? From the universe
Yep.
and from your deep part of yourself, that unborn, undying aspect that tells you what you need to hear,
Mm.
right? And so that's the first part, becoming aware. Once that happens, right? And you know what's causing that pain, right? That hole, whatever you want to define that as, then we could use that as a tool to point us in the right direction of healing,
Mm.
right? Because a lot of times we may have even known what that is, but we didn't understand how to address that. So we turn to substances, or we
Mhm.
turn to gambling, we turn to whatever it is that gets your fix, so to speak, right? But it's a temporary relief, but it's not a permanent
Right.
healing.
It's a Band-Aid.
It's a band-aid,
Yeah.
right?
A
And
distraction, yeah.
we got to rip that band-aid off,
Which takes work.
go full force, right?
Mhm.
All the way in. And most times, once we start that journey, the first step always begins with the body,
Mm.
right? So if your body is in pain, right, and your body doesn't feel healthy or strong, your mind doesn't feel that way either, right? There's a great quote saying it's like, a weak mind has no place in a strong body,
Ooh, that's
right?
great.
A weak
Yeah.
mind has no place in a strong body.
Mm.
It can't exist, doesn't happen, right? We could have aspects of our mind that aren't as trained, right, as developed, and we could quote unquote say weak. But if you have done that work, you have a strong mind,
Mm.
right? Your mental strength is
Yes,
there,
it is.
right?
Mhm.
So that's where it begins, right? Train the body and the mind will follow. So
Mm.
start with the body, right? Then you can take your perspective and your consciousness to a different place of where the real healing lies,
Right.
which is always obviously in our like emotional body,
Yeah.
right?
It's
It's
an
like our
inside game.
feeling.
Yeah.
It always goes back to the little child inside, right?
Mm.
That's still a little hurt from
Mm.
what they didn't get in childhood or whatever it is, right? That
Mhm.
loss, that thing. that happened. And
Mm.
so then from there, you could take it further into your own personal journey.
That's great. Have you
Yeah.
like frameworked that out before? Because that feels like a really solid framework you just went
I
through.
mean, I've shared
Yeah,
that like
that
framework or
framework. Yeah,
template,
that's great.
but also too, whenever I speak about it,
Yeah,
like I know myself too, do better like when I have to really be in the moment,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
when
Be
I'm
present
like,
with
when you
it.
ask me about
Yeah,
like what that is,
yeah.
then I have to break that down. It
That's
really
great.
could,
Yeah.
bring out that gold inside it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're there on day 3. We're breathing together. I don't think we were next to each other, maybe not
Mhm.
near each other, but we're in this big,
In the astral realm,
in the astro. Hey,
we were
that's
right
right.
next to each
We were
other.
right next to each other. My guy. That's right. I love it. Yeah. So we're in this big room with 80 other people that
Yeah.
are getting after it. I mean, the emotional releases. People are popping off left and right. Like they're taking us deep in there. And was that so? As you had that whisper come to you in
Hmm.
in the form of your dad's voice saying, "That's not a hole in your heart. That's a home in your heart. That's where I reside." Did you feel your knee pain shift? Did you feel like did physically you felt the sensations change afterwards?
Certainly. I mean, my knee was still my knee, right? There was still a lot of pain and swelling
Yeah.
and things happening down there, but I could feel in my chest that
Mm,
release, right?
yeah.
Because even when you have physical pain, right, in a specific place, whether it's your ankle, whether it's your knee or your wrist, right, it also affects the rest of the body,
Yeah.
right? In whatever
Absolutely.
ways that does. And for me, it's like in my chest. I
Mm,
hold that in my heart a lot.
yeah.
And so I could feel that release, like
Open up.
open up.
Was that the first time you had a release like that during breath work, or had you
That
had something
was,
like that
yes,
similar?
that was the first time during breathwork I've ever experienced that
That
level,
level of it, yeah.
that of depth.
Yep.
That was incredible.
I had a very similar experience the first time I
Mhm.
did breath work on a Wim Hof retreat in Iceland in 2019, and it was the first deep breathing session I had ever done too, and I felt this release from these different injuries that I had from my knee pain as well, from my back,
Mm.
from my quad injury, from my lung, my appendicitis, from all these injuries and surgeries I had. I felt this wave of emotion come up and release and this trauma release, and I cried my eyes out,
Yeah.
and I was so caught off guard. I wasn't expecting that. And then after, I can so relate to that feeling of like lightness and openness. Felt like my shoulders had dropped down and I was
Mm.
just present, and I felt like I had the space in my chest, right? It wasn't constricted, I was expanded.
Yeah.
And after that moment, and that was the first time I'd experienced anything like that. So I was legitimately concerned that the retreat leader had like drugged us, because I was like, he must have like we must have taken
That's
acid or
something. Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's something what was in the water, because how can I laying here for an hour and a half, just breathing, taking deep breaths, not doing
Mm.
anything crazy, just laying down in one spot, taking deep breaths. How can I have this experience where I had this release, and I'm
Mm.
sure similar for you, this experience where like you're having a conversation with your father who's no longer physically here, and you're having these downloads and insights and physical releases, and that's when I came to the power of there's something to this breathwork thing,
Yeah.
and I got to figure out what's going on here. I got to learn this. I got to teach this to other people, and that was kind of how started me on my journey that led us together as well.
Yeah, I mean, I share a very similar story as well. I remember the first time I ever found out about the Wim Hof method. It was like 2018. Aubrey Marcus just
Hmm.
released this book, Own the Day, Own Your Life.
Yep.
Aubrey Marcus is another one of my like mentors
Yep.
in this space. And first chapter, right? It was like starting with your morning routine. And he talks about the Wim Hof method, doing the breath work, doing the cold shower, and that whole thing. And so I literally just took it step by step from what it did in the book, right? Well, but what they really don't tell you is to not do it in the shower.
Yeah. Did you try
At
that?
first, so that's what I
No.
did. So I went into the shower, I learned like the routine step by step, went in the shower, turned it on cold,
No.
and did the breath work. Now that's
Yeah.
absolutely not what you're
Do
supposed to be
do
doing.
not
Don't do that.
do the breath work
But
in or around water.
if you do, you're gonna be floating on.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, it was so powerful and intense. I literally only did like one round, one or two. I couldn't take
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Like it was just so intense. And it was the first time I'd felt since my father died, like I was able to change the way I felt
Wow.
internally, like without the need of a exogenous substance, right? Or something, the gym, right? Or the mall or Amazon, whatever it was, right? It was literally just coming from me.
Mm,
And I was in charge of how I felt. And that's a powerful feeling.
mm,
That's like where it all began, and that was 2018. During that time too, I was working as a personal trainer in New York City,
hmm.
in
How many
Brooklyn.
years after is this from when your dad passed away?
So this is like he passed away in January 2015. So this
Okay.
is like,
Yeah.
like 3 years
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So still pretty
Yeah. Fresh in
fresh,
that.
definitely fresh, Um, and so I just started on the journey. I was a personal trainer, right? I
Yeah.
was doing my thing. I didn't really carry that practice so much with me after that experience. It kind of like was just once in a while. Maybe we'll try to go in like cold water or
Mhm.
something like that, but it wasn't a regular thing. Then COVID came around. And we all had to become very still, very
Slow
solitude,
down.
right? Slow down. You get depressed, obviously, and different things. And that's when I really dove deep into the breath work. Started doing it like almost every day. No one's perfect. So it definitely
Mhm.
wasn't every day, but it was multiple times a week.
Mhm.
And then during that time too, that I started going into the cold, right? And I started to be intentional about whether that was a cold shower, right? Also, too, I carried it through the summer, and then winter of 2020 was the first time we went into like a frozen lake during the winter. It was me and my mom and like all her
Cool.
friends. So like my mom, super cool. She's like the best. She's from Sweden.
Mhm.
So she's grow up in a cold country, and she would always tell us these different things about like staying healthy during the winter. Like we weren't allowed to have our jacket on before the first snowfall.
Wow.
She would always tell us like make sure you end your showers on the cold because
So
you feel
good.
warm and things like that, right? So I always had a little bit of a draw to the cold. I liked it.
Mm.
Run temperature kind of hot.
Mhm. Mhm.
Traditionally I'm a sweater.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I liked it, right? And I enjoyed that aspect of a challenge.
Mm.
And I went in there like, they went in and like out in 30 seconds. I like went in, I did it. Right. Deep breathing. Did the 3 minutes, came out, my fingers were like, in
Yeah.
the dinosaur claws, but I did it. And that was a real milestone on my journey with the Wim Hof Method. So I was like practicing a lot. This at this point as well, I stopped working in New York sports clubs where I was, and I had my own business. So I was doing
Mhm.
like online training a lot. Obviously, that was most of the ways that personal trainers were working back then. And I decided like I wanted to offer my clients something different. Like the Wim Hof method, right?
Yep.
That something that really helped me. I know that I could help them with too.
Mhm.
So I dug deeper, right? Just kept following that trail, the
The
nudges,
breadcrumbs.
right?
Yep.
I know you said that, follow the breadcrumbs, exactly. It was kind of just like that, walking down that path, and it led me to signing up.
Mhm.
Right. I was like, I want to do it. I want to become an instructor. So I signed up for the master module. You go through the online portal and workshop. And so this is
Mhm.
2021,
Mhm.
right? So this is a year before actually the class that we were
Yeah.
in. So I
Yeah.
was supposed to be in the year before. So
Ah.
I went in, I did the whole thing.
Mhm.
And the day of my flight, this is during COVID, and it was when you had to have a
The
test,
Yep.
right, to prove that you didn't have COVID. And it came back positive.
No. Oh, so you actually like you were set to go.
I
You
had
were.
my backpack on and
I didn't know
everything.
that.
All of
Wow.
it. Had it all.
And you tested positive for COVID.
Test positive COVID. Can't go.
Oh,
So it was heartbreaking.
you're
I was like,
kidding.
no, I'm serious.
Wow.
So that was like that. Oh, that was like such a heartbreak,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was something I was looking so forward to. And after that time, I really like kind of fell back into that like
Mm.
downward cycle, right? That we like our emotions
Mhm.
and our life kind of turn, right? It's
Mhm.
always kind of in this cycle of like peaks and valleys. And
Mhm.
I went back down to a valley, and I was very disheartened by it. Also at that time, people started going back to the gym. So I
Mhm.
was losing a lot of my clients, right? My
Mm.
business was really going down. This didn't work out. It felt like just like it wasn't happening for me. And then so this is now in the spring of 2022.
Mhm.
And me and my current fiance, we were having like a lot of issues then too, because
Mhm.
I was just not emotionally available
Yeah.
as well for her and not even for myself, right? So that took a toll on both of us. And when you're living together, it's like you share your successes, right? Your
Yep.
pleasures and your pain. You share both of those things. And so that was a real toll. And in the summertime, I was just like, you know, we had another chance to go. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'm not going. It's done. It's not for me. I'm not going to be an instructor. So I
Wow.
emailed, right?
Wow.
Made that decision. All like, I emailed the academy. I was like, yeah, so it's not for me. Got COVID. I can't do the summer one. Can I get my money back?
Yeah.
And they said no. Thank God.
Thank
They said
God.
no,
Yep.
right? So I was like, okay. They said no, but you can join
For next
year's
Yep.
right, next year's module. So okay, I'm doing it. So now I'm back on the track, right?
There we
This is
go.
like July 2022. I'm doing my thing again. I actually went back to New York Sports Club.
Okay.
So I kind of was like filling in the gaps a little bit of like, even though it was almost felt like I was going reverse, it was like, you know, there's a saying, it's like no matter how high you get, right? If you skip steps, you always have to come back.
That's
right?
good.
So
There's
I
no
was like,
skipping steps.
There's no skipping steps. So I felt like I was skipping steps, right? It was like COVID propelled me from like a personal trainer, lead trainer to like a business owner. And that like also propelled my ego from there to there too.
But you had to fill in the skill
So I
set
had to
to
fill in the
actually get
skill
there.
step,
That's
right?
great.
Exactly. Because I like it was almost like I got this business like out of nowhere, you know?
Yep. There's
I
no
mean, I
shortcut.
had those clients, but it wasn't like, you know, it was a whole different thing. So I had to go back and do those steps, which I did. So like I became fitness manager of the facility as well, leading into, right? I'm playing basketball a lot. I'm a big basketball player.
Heck
So
yeah.
love
Are you
basketball.
hooping now? Are you still hooping now? Or
I haven't hooped so much this injury.
Okay, yeah,
so
yeah. I was
this is what
curious.
this is what I'm getting to. So I'm playing basketball, playing like a men's league. This is like pretty good men's league. This is in Rockland County, New York. So we get a lot of like former D1 or just like people that never went to college that are playing really well. And me, I'm like, something turns on when I'm in a game, right? Like it's all out. Like I'm ready to die on that court. So literally, that's how I injured my knee. So I was going up for a rebound. Came down on one leg, boom, snapped my knee, right? This is in November of 2022. Right. And so I tore my ACL, my MCL, I strained my hamstring, I chipped my tibial plateau, I broke my femur.
You broke your femur with that?
All of it.
Like, I knew it was ACL, MCL. I didn't know you did your femur. It was all, Oh, no.
The doctor came back and was like, you have 13 things wrong with your knee. God. I was like, oh my God, it was bad.
Whoa.
Like, it was very, very bad injury. And I had to wait until mid-December to get my surgery. Like, it's not an emergency procedure.
Yeah, and they got to let the swelling go down a bit too.
Exactly. So they're just like, all right, that's when you get it. And you know, my mom, my fiance, they're like, "Oh, you can't go to this Wim Hof Method, right?" So this is what I'm dealing with as well. I'm like second chance. I know I'm not gonna get a third chance of this, but I got my second chance. So there's no way I'm letting this knee stop me from going there. Like I was like, I'm gonna crawl there. You literally saw me. I would like.
You were legitimately crawling it sometimes.
I was like, I learned like what it feels like in some ways to be handicapped, you know, in that way. And it's tough, you know, like even how people look at you. I would feel like the eyes in the airport when I'm being wheeled around. And I had like, you know, it was really hard. You know, everyone said you shouldn't go. You don't do that. Like it's only going to be 8 weeks after surgery. You can't even walk until 6 weeks. Right. So like, what are you going to do? Have your crutches? So I just brought a cane. It was like a badass cane.
It was badass.
I got from my neighbor. And I did it. And that's kind of what, you know, it's all amazing. That like kind of momentum and that accomplishment, the insights I got from the experience of the Wim Hof Method all led me to the place where I am today, which is a blessing.
That's incredible.
Right? And you never know where those breadcrumbs are going to lead you to.
Absolutely.
Right?
Especially... Thanks for sharing that backstory. I love that. I didn't know a lot of those details, especially because we're not sitting here having this conversation if you didn't test positive for COVID on the first one.
Exactly.
Right. Or they give you their money back.
Or I just didn't go after my knee.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different things. I think that's such a great takeaway for listeners as well, is that like there's so many things that sometimes can get in the way of doing the thing that you ultimately want to do or need to do. And and you don't know where that can lead.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It's like sometimes, God gives you your dreams just to see how you'll handle them.
Mm,
Right? It
mm,
doesn't mean like the dream was the Wim Hof Method. Okay, you got to accept it.
yeah.
Now, how are you going to handle being injured during that?
Right.
How are you going to handle getting cold? How are you going to handle, right?
What's so
It's
funny
going to be
too
on that.
about the parallel of your story and my story
Hmm.
is that before that first retreat in Iceland, so I did when I was in high school, I did my ACL, LCL, MCL,
Hmm.
meniscus all in one go, and I got that repaired and recovered from that, and then I was set to go in March. And in January, I was set to go to the retreat in March of 2019. And in January of 2019, I was skiing and I hit a tree branch going down this like double black mogul that I didn't see, and I had a nasty spill, and I
Hmm.
retore my MCL. And so I'm here sitting 8 weeks away from going to Iceland,
Yeah.
and I'm like, there's no way I can go do a serious endeavor, climb a mountain, go into these cold rivers. I just tore my MCL. Thankfully, I didn't need to get it surgically repaired, but like I just tore my MCL and then
It's
within 6 to 8 weeks, I'm supposed to go do this, and I was like, I'm just gonna throw in the towel. Like I'm not gonna go to this trip because it doesn't make sense. And there was one person, Sophia, my close friend. She was a physical therapist as well that was helping me through some stuff, and she was just like, no, like your Iceland retreat starts now. Like
Yeah.
now is in the mindset to heal your body. That's what you're going out there for. Like now is that like you're going there. And I was like, okay, like it's possible.
Yeah.
And then I followed that belief and then went, and it changed my entire life. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here sitting where I'm at without that. So it's so wild, and it was such an important voice to have, Sophia's voice, to like have her belief of like, no, like you're gonna do this and you can do this.
Mm.
And for me to borrow that belief because I didn't have it at that time, and it was way easy to listen to everybody else saying, oh no way, you got to cancel your trip. But I had her, and I could borrow her belief. And I think that's something that you, as when we talk about being a healer, being a coach, a
Yeah.
mentor, a trainer, it's like that's something that you have and you have to give to people, is to like give them that belief that, hey, no, you're gonna do this, you can do this,
Yeah.
I believe in you to do this. And I'm curious to just get your thoughts on kind of exploring that topic of like having that belief and being able to borrow belief from people when you don't.
Yeah. I mean, exactly to your point, for others too, it's like you don't know how important your voice is to somebody
Great.
else, right? Like
That's so good.
how you're that one voice away from changing somebody's life.
Oof.
Or
Good.
that next, right? That you all you needed was that one person to say, I believe in you.
Mm.
You could do this. And you did it. Right. And we could be that for so many people. A lot of times we want to be the main character only of our story, right? We only want to be the main character. But there's a lot of value in being a supporting character for other people's stories too.
It's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all the main character and supporting characters of the world.
Mm.
Right? It's like, even though we're all living this separate journey, right? And we're always in our own minds, right? And how we view the world is totally different than how someone else views the world, but we're still part of their world. It's not like 8 billion different worlds out there.
Right.
It's one world, right? And we're all living on the same world, but there's 8 billion different viewers,
Yeah.
right? And so we're all,
Great.
it's like the eyewitness thing, like, right? Like if there's 5 eyewitnesses at the same event, you get 5 different stories of what really happened, right? So that's kind of what it is. And we can be that support for others. And there's
Yeah.
real value in that. And that's what I really enjoyed
Mm.
about being like a coach
Mhm.
and doing Wim Hof Method classes, is being that voice and that support for somebody else, because I know how important it was for me at
Yeah.
different times in my journey. And if we ever want to reach to like a higher level, it's a requirement to bring others up with us.
Mm. Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Right? So it's like it's like the student becoming the master in a way, right? It's you only become a teacher by teaching others.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's just theoretical knowledge, right? So
Mhm.
it's about the application, right? And once you release that knowledge, then you have room for more. If you're
Mhm.
always holding on to, right, there is an unlimited capacity in some sense of what we can learn and accomplish, right? But there's also a limited capacity of what we can focus on.
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
so if we're not sharing that focus
Mhm.
with others, we're only in that singular
That's great.
focus at the time. And so that's how I feel. It's like
Mm.
once you share that, then you really get an understanding of what that means. Like even when we were doing that little like thing before, it's like once I shared that with you,
Yeah.
I really could get an understanding of what that meant.
Mhm.
And now I have room for more.
That's great. I love that takeaway, and I
Yeah.
love the takeaway too of that you don't know how your voice can be the voice that plants the seed to change
Yeah.
somebody's life, and it happens that way too. Where I'm sure this happened to you. This happened to me before, where someone's like, "Remember that conversation where you said this or this? Like that changed everything for me." And I'm like, "I don't remember the conversation." Like because we're
Yeah, yeah,
we're we're
yeah.
we're not in that
Of
mindset of like,
course.
"Oh, that little thing that I said to you, those all that time ago, like that stuck with you, that made an
Mhm.
impact." So we don't know, and we can't judge what's going to land or what's going to stick with someone or what's
Right.
going to make that impact. And so I think we all have the responsibility as human beings that are on this collective journey,
Right.
on this collective planet, on this collective path to share and to speak up and to share where we can, to lend that belief and to share those words of affirmation and wisdom to people that we can.
For sure. We don't like know the power that we hold.
Mm,
Right. And so we're always diminishing our true worth. Right. Because in some capacity, we almost don't feel like we're worthy.
right.
Right? It's because it's a show me society. It's a prove it, right?
Yep.
Like show me what you've done lately. I always hear
Hmm.
that, right? So if success is only success at the moment of success, if we're not at that moment, we don't feel successful,
Right. Mm.
right?
So how do you define success? How do you rewrite that definition?
Oof. That's definitely a big one to unpack.
It's a big one to pack.
But it can be many different things, right? I mean, obviously there's the financial
Mhm,
right definition
mhm,
right of success, which would in typical fashion would be more money, more
mhm.
success, right?
And for you personally, how do you define
But for
success?
me personally, right, I would define that as the impact that I
Mm,
have, right, and also how I feel inside, right, and the genuineness that I can hold, and
nice.
ultimately the gratitude that I show.
Mm,
Right?
that's
If
great.
like that's
Yeah.
truly what success.
Mhm,
If I'm feeling comfortable within my own skin, right? And
mhm.
I am knowing that I'm genuine and doing what I would consider positive for the world, that's success.
That's great.
All right.
Mm,
And so whatever that is for you as like a coach, right?
mhm.
That's seeing your client go from where they started to accomplishing their goals. Right. And that feels extremely successful,
Yeah.
not just for the client, but for me. That makes me feel like a success.
Mm,
Right. And whether it's for you, right?
mhm,
Like where you were starting your business, right? And you
mhm.
saw it go from just an idea to what it is
Reality.
to
Yeah,
reality.
yeah,
That's a success.
totally.
So whatever that it's like it's getting beyond that challenge, right? That we were talking about, right? And where, you don't know how many steps like it took to get here, right? Meeting the challenge, right? And then getting to the other side of that, whatever that is, that's success.
Mm, so good.
And so there's like a million little successes on the trail to
Yep, and I
the
think
big
it's really
one.
important that people define that, like, that's a
Hmm.
beautiful definition that you shared, I like that, it's, very similar to how I define
Hmm.
success, and but we're not taught to, like, define it for ourselves, and so if you're not consciously defining, "What does success look like for me in this endeavor, in this relationship, in
Hmm.
this lifetime?" If you're not taking the time to stop and ponder those big questions and those really important North Star guiding questions, then it's like sailing a rudderless ship and you're going to get blown in the direction that the wind pushes you, which is going to be the voice of whatever the mainstream media,
Hmm.
society, culture, upbringing is kind of pushing you. And if that's not pushing you in a helpful direction,
Right.
then you're going to end up, this is why people end up with the midlife crisis or the quarter life crisis, or
Of
wake up and they're
course.
like, oh crap, like I achieved this success. I mean, how often do you hear this trope? I achieved success and I did the things that I thought would make me happy, and then I wasn't happy. It's like that is the chronic, that is what will happen 100% of the time
Right.
unless you're able to shift that definition of success. Like Jim Carrey always said, I loved his quote, which was, my wish is that everybody could become rich and famous so that they realize that's not what makes them happy."
Right. 100%. I mean, It's like unless we know our center,
Hmm.
unless we're grounded and we're balanced, the society is gonna make you what you
Yep.
want they want you to be, and the wind is gonna blow you away.
That's right.
That's
And
it.
that's why it's so important, going back to what we were talking about earlier, these tools. And like, I'm just bringing this back to the Wim Hof method, and we're
Mhm.
talking about of slowing down and building that sense of awareness, connecting with your breath, connecting with your body.
Mm.
Because from that, we can allow, like, I believe that we are our own best coach, our best mentor, our best healer, our best doctor, like our best friend. We all have that innate ability within ourselves, but
Yeah.
that's like blocked usually by the blocks and the hurt that we hold on to, the holes that we feel in our heart, and they're waiting to be transformed into the home. And we are this, this hurt that's waiting to be
Yeah.
transformed into a home. And so coming back to that, and how important it is to be able to build that skill set and that tool set to shift the way that you feel and to
Yeah.
tune into your body. Like you were saying, when you first started doing this work, and it's the thing that motivates, and I love this part of the work too, and sharing with others, is that you are in control of your own health, strength, and
Right.
happiness. Like, you can
Yeah.
influence the way that you feel. And Wim was showing this on the textbook level of, you can influence your autonomic nervous
Right.
system and your immune system, your endocrine system. You do have that ability. So like, I think that's the thing you and I both align with, is the responsibility and the purpose to teach this to other people, that you can control the way that you feel. You don't have to blow rudderless. You
Yeah.
can slow down. You
Right.
can take a deep breath. You can shift the way that you feel and steer the ship with more purpose and direction.
100%. And then just like that, right? Every time you communicate that to others, you're communicating it to
Exactly.
yourself.
You remind, like,
Right?
as I'm
Yeah.
sharing this to you, I'm
Yeah.
reminding myself of this,
Yeah.
and there's things lighting up in my mind and brain,
Exactly.
and reminders for me, and insights and breakthroughs and whispers coming through for me,
Right.
which is the beautiful process.
And that's that aspect of bringing someone up to your
That's
level so
great.
you can get to another.
That's great. By that process, and I
Right.
see what you're saying earlier.
Yeah.
By bringing someone up, like, you elevate yourself.
You elevate
Yeah.
your knowledge to
Yeah, your
another,
knowledge, exactly.
a higher level,
Mhm.
right? Of that, and that reminder, because we always need reminders.
Always.
No one is perfect.
Always.
You're always gonna get sucked back in
Yep.
sometimes to those unconscious, just autonomic habits.
Yep.
Right. That we all
It's the game.
develop, like, without even thinking about
Yep.
it. Right. And so you always have to come back to that. And I remember something my father always told me is like, especially basketball, we were a big sports family. He was a great athlete too.
Mm.
He went to West Virginia University. He ran track and field,
Wow.
like played basketball, did the whole thing. And he would always tell me, is like, Daniel, is like, you have to be in control of your emotions. Like, even back
Mm.
then, he was telling me, when you get to the free throw line, take a breath.
Yep.
That little thing, right?
Yep.
Just take a breath. Slow down, right? Get
Yeah.
in control of your emotions and where you want to go. Because if you don't get in control of your emotions will get in control of you.
Yeah.
Always.
Did you ever see Inside Out, the Disney movie?
I didn't see that one.
Okay,
no, yeah.
watch that.
Yeah.
Watch the first and the second one. Amazing.
Mhm.
They're made for kids, but they're really not for kids. Like,
Yeah,
they're incredible.
Yeah.
I went to the movie with my niece and nephew, so that was my.
Yeah.
It's out on Disney Plus now. You can watch it. You don't have to feel like you're going into.
That's
the
a good thing about like having nieces. I
Yeah,
have
it's
nieces and
true.
nephews too. Is like you get to see all the kid stuff too. with
Yeah,
them, right?
and you get to see how the kid stuff is really for the parents too.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
good kid stuff, of
There's
course.
a lot of hidden messages.
Oh my
like,
goodness. Yeah. And when you're saying that, it's like the Inside Out, the whole thing is, the emotions that are at the control board, and they're, and 100%, like, and it's so brilliant the way they did that movie, because it creates an ability and a construct for us to see it and to understand how our emotions work. So it's like the control board has been hijacked by like your emotions, and until you take a deep breath and you can allow presence to come in.
Right.
And
that's a success.
That's a success. That's a win.
That's a win, right?
Yep.
That's a W. Like,
Yep.
there's so many small wins along the path that leads to that, like, story of success, right? That
Yeah.
overall grand, whatever it was, right? There's little battles, little challenges along the way that leads to that big success, always. And
Yeah.
I feel like for me, of course, that was like getting through that retreat. That was like a small win, right? But it was a huge impact on where I am and going today, right? And where I'm now beginning to, in the process of opening up a business, right? Centered around cold water therapy,
Fantastic.
saunas, red light therapy, right? Air compression, breath work, one-on-one coaching, and eventually, hopefully, many other different modalities too. And then all led from the nudge, right? Following the breadcrumbs, that little win, right? That little success led to what I hope now is going to be my big success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's kind of track this back to where we're at present now into the future. So coming back from, from your cane adventures in Spain. And I remember we had some good jams on the
Yeah.
travels back. We were
Yeah,
outside of a
yeah, yeah,
gas
yeah,
station or something like that. And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
cool, we're gonna stay in touch.
yeah, yeah.
And so you come back, you keep rehabbing your
Mhm.
knee, and you're coming back with this, on this high, right? Of
Mm.
coming from Iceland. You were like our mascot, right? Like you were our spirit animal of our group, and anybody that was in our group
Yeah.
knows that you were the heart and soul. Like you were the heartbeat and the leader of the whole 75-person group.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't say that lightly.
Yeah, thank you.
And it was amazing, and it was the one memory that's coming to mind is when we were down there in the mud,
Oh, bro.
and you were leading the "I believe that we will win" chant. And they changed the name to "I believe that we will Wim,"
Yeah,
and that was so epic.
that was.
And we're just all like, after a cold immersion into the sea, we're like just rolling in the mud and getting muddy and just getting connected with the earth
Oh
and
my
getting
God.
primal and kid-like, letting
Yeah.
that inner child out. And
Yeah.
it was just a bunch of crazies out there. It was awesome.
That was a real like spiritual experience for me then in that moment. That was the day where this insight came.
That was the day.
That was like, yeah.
No
kidding.
kidding.
I was after
Oh.
that. So I was already
Oh,
on this
dude.
like really
What a
raw
day.
in this really raw place.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And I was just doing my thing, and I was like way behind everybody, because everyone was
Yeah.
going for it. It was cold. Like you want to get into the mud, and it's not just any mud, it's like, the Dead Sea kind of
Yeah,
mud, right?
yeah,
With all the
minerals.
minerals, right? And so it feels really good. And I've been to the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, when you go there, you want to get your whole body,
Yep,
right?
yep.
All the way in it. So I was swimming in it. You know what I mean? I was like, I couldn't really stand to, so I had to just lay down and just get like really into the mud, right? And I'll do it all. And then I think did we go in?
It was
Or-
before we went in.
It was
like,
before we went in.
We got down there,
Right,
and
we
the
got-
exercise was like,
Yeah,
get
exactly.
muddy, like
Okay,
let it go,
exactly.
let the
And
inner
then-
child go,
so
get
I-
primal.
Exactly. Yeah. So I remember I was like kind of, limping my way up, and I see all you, it's like Wim Hof's daughter's there, all
Yeah.
this other guy, and it's all you, and you're all like,
Yeah,
like
just
you're like, oh, let's go. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, these guys are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, let me go. And then so I walk up, and I remember in high school, I was always the one that was doing that chant. Right? I was always kind of the one that was like getting people to that energy level, right? Of like changing it to where we need to be. And then so I was kind of dying down, right? The chant, everyone was like, oh, what are you doing now? And I was just like, I went in there, I was like, all right, now you listen to me. And I was
Repeat after me.
I got this chant, but you repeat after me. And at the end, you go crazy and jump up. And I did it. It was like, I believe. And it was like the earth was shaking.
Legitimately.
It was like so much energy
Yeah.
and power in that. And then it was like we changed it. I believe that we will win. And it was like, oh, the top blew off, man. It was like insane.
They loved it. So for
They
those who
did.
haven't heard the chant, how does it go?
It was like, I believe
I believe.
that we
I believe that we.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
And we're
I
just like,
believe
I was
it.
like, doing
Yeah.
like the haka,
Yeah.
and I was slapping.
I
It
feel
was
like,
great.
dude, it was so epic. And I feel like, too,
Yeah.
because like I've heard that chant. I led that chant in our student cheer section in high school for the basketball games. It's a very American thing, too.
It is.
And so like it was awesome because it felt like we just brought this patriotic bald eagle flying through the sky like
was.
American punch to all these Europeans. It was like
They loved it though.
They loved it. They
were
ate
all.
it up.
They did.
They
I
ate
remember
it
like
up.
the rest of every time I saw something, I believe it was like
I mean, it was a banner moment. It was a highlight of the week.
And we were
and it
like
was
chanting at the bar at the end.
the
It
whole
was
Then the chants were going for the rest
It
of the
was
week.
like the whole time. That was it. It was just the I believe.
And the instructors loved it. They've taken it on to their own
They do.
events.
Now I've seen videos of Wim doing it.
Right,
Like
right.
when they're doing the chant.
Didn't they do it in like the big stadium when they did it in the big stadium when they had a massive one? So
like
you heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. And the instructor that like is carried with, his name's Dom.
Yeah, Dom. Right.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Legend.
He's been like holding the torch now.
So good. So good.
Yeah, that was a big moment.
That was a big moment,
That
and that would make so much sense. That was the same. That was after a few hours after you had this insight during the deep breathing. So what a day that was. So you come back from this trip, and now you're integrating as a certified Wim Hof Method instructor. We're both certified Wim Hof Method instructors. You got into it right away. I remember you started leading Wim Hof Method, workshops, level 1 workshops. Started to integrate this with your client work, still personal training. So like, how did you like take this back into your business at that point?
Yeah, so I just started with my clients I already had. I mean, I was still not at like full capacity, physically speaking, with my legs. So I didn't really, that was like kind of really a challenge to like set the tubs up and like
Yeah.
all that, like,
Yeah.
physical labor
Mhm.
aspect. So I just started doing it with my clients, teaching the breath work, like telling them to go to cold showers, everything's like that. Once I felt comfortable in like actually doing a group one, then I had my fiance help me. She's been like my assistant on
Cool.
all
That's
the
great.
events we do. She's amazing. Her name's Carly. She's beautiful.
Shout out to Carly.
She's super deep soul too. She holds a
Mm,
really good space for people, and she's also a yoga instructor.
amazing.
So we kind of tie in some movement with it,
Great, great.
as well. And I did at my mom's house. Like she has a little yoga studio.
Love it.
Like that's not attached to the house, but it's
Mhm,
like an old garage that we
mhm.
converted into a yoga studio. And I just started there. Yeah. And it's it's wild. So this little yoga studio, my dad was like a yogi. So
Mhm.
he was a really interesting character, honestly.
Wow.
He I told you already about like
The
his athletic
sports, yeah.
background and everything, but then he studied drama and he became an actor. He became
Wow.
an actor on Broadway.
Wow.
Yeah, he then was invited by the US government to go to Soviet Union,
Whoa.
like during the Cold War, and like it wasn't just him,
For
it was like
what?
in the
What was
troop
he what
for performing.
for performance,
Like
yeah.
they brought things to us, like the
Yeah, sure.
ballet and stuff. We
Right,
also
right, right.
did that to Russia. Like we also sent
Right,
things there,
right.
like to ease tensions.
Yep.
And so he was there. He was doing his thing. He met this really famous Russian Jewish clown called Popov.
Okay.
If you look him up, he's like, he's won like, communist man, I don't know, whatever it is, like, the awards they give out
Yeah.
in Russia for like man of the year. Like he's a very famous clown, and they take clowning serious
Interesting.
in Europe. Like there's no joke. Like it's
Okay.
an art. And so he was like, my dad was always like a little bit of class clown.
Yeah.
So he was like, all right, I want to be a clown. I want to learn how to be a clown. So
Whoa.
everyone leaves and he stays in Russia by himself, like learning under Popov, the famous clown.
Wow.
Eventually gets to the point where the Russian government gets wind of him, and this was the story he told me, is that they told him that you need to leave the country immediately or we're going to send you to Siberia. Like you're done. Like you need to get out of here. Like you're not allowed to be here anymore.
So you went.
So he left and he
Yeah.
went to Paris,
Okay.
and he studied in a very famous clown school.
Wow.
He was actually classmates with Geoffrey Rush.
Who's Joffrey Rush?
He's the actor from Pirates of the Caribbean, and
Oh,
also
cool.
like the King's Speech, who
Oh, yeah, yeah.
teaches
Oh, yeah,
it,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that
Yep,
guy,
yep,
Geoffrey
yep, yep,
Rush.
yep.
So he's also a clown.
Wow.
Joffrey never, maybe never know that.
Wow.
But Joffrey started as a clown. And then,
So interesting.
I know. And then my dad, he was invited to be the, part of the production that the school put on, in France. And so he stayed in Europe for like 8 years,
Wow.
and
Is that where you
became a
met your
clown.
mom?
No, it's not actually. So it's a different, like, so he became a clown. Then his father got sick. So
Mm.
he came back. He eventually died, cancer or something, like, so
Mhm.
similar story. And then he went back. He met his first partner, where
Mhm.
we had a child with
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
older sister,
Mhm.
and she was from Israel.
Mhm.
And so they, she was actually born like before it was a country of Israel, and like
Wow.
I
Yeah,
guess it
yeah,
was
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Palestine or whatever. And then so they went to India together, and that's where he learned yoga
In India,
in
okay.
India. He was there for like
Wow.
6 to 9
Okay.
months,
Okay.
learning from like Maharaji, which is like a master of some sorts,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
really got into yoga and to breath work and breathing. And so this little yoga studio, right, tying back to what we were talking about, this little yoga
Wow.
studio, I remember growing up, my father was always doing breath work. He was always doing yoga. He was like the only one I knew doing yoga in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
taught my mother, who's not a yoga teacher,
Wow.
but I have these memories of being younger and my dad inviting me into the space with him to do breath work with him.
Wow.
I didn't know like the power of it,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what was happening, but I could see and feel there was a real
Mm.
effect that was happening.
Yeah.
And we always had this like joke, because then my father, he changed his career completely. He went to nursing school. He became a nurse,
Whoa.
like in his mid 30s, early
Wow.
40s. So he totally changed his career path. And whenever he'd come back from working, because he had to commute to Columbia Presbyterian, the city, and we lived in the suburbs outside. traffic, right? That could turn a yogi into like, a psychopath
Yep.
real quick, right? That line of where is it like, oh, you think you're enlightened? Like, go
Spend
spend.
a week with your
Yeah,
family.
yes.
Yeah, Ram Dass quote. I love
That's
that.
like my dad in traffic. Like,
So good. You
like
think you're enlightened? Go.
totally enlightened being, get him on the road, and he is ready to throw some F bombs and fight. You know what I mean? Like, so
That's
it's funny.
good.
So whenever, dad come home from work after traffic, right? Get him. He had to go do his yoga before he
Mhm.
came into the house,
Wow,
right?
to
And it
like
was like
decompress and move through.
decompress, and it was like meeting a different person, like, you know what I mean? From and so I
Good
could,
for him to be able to like
yeah.
have that boundary too, to
Mm.
like do what he needs to do to become present and then go be with his
Right,
family.
right. And so I could feel that from an early age, there's a real
Mm.
power in that. And like, so from my father with the breath work, my mother from Sweden, and like the cold,
Makes so much
I
sense.
felt like it was made for me, the Wim Hof method, you know?
Seriously. Yeah, and it's how
Yeah,
cool to see you sharing in the way that you're sharing
yeah.
too, and leading your life in service and sharing these tools. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's incredible to carry your
Yeah.
dad's legacy on in that way too.
And now I'm like, I've done multiple workshops in
Mhm.
that little
Isn't that
yoga
cool?
studio
Oh,
where he like we
your
first
your
shared the
dad is
breath work.
stoked.
Yeah.
Your dad is so stoked on that. You
Years
know he
after he
is.
passed, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm kind of carrying
Yeah,
that on
100%
there.
in a
So
huge way. Wow, so
yeah,
special. Okay, so
that's
so now
been.
you've been doing those workshops and now
Mhm.
and just continue to build your clientele, your personal business.
Exactly. Continuing to build that. After the Wim Hof Method retreat, I was part of Aubrey Marcus's like Fit for
Mhm.
Service program, which was really good. There was a lot of more like inner child work,
Yep.
as well as like professional development, and
Yep.
also relationship, like I guess you could say like IQ in a way,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah.
like emotional intelligence
Mhm.
I got from there. And so I met tons of great people. I met people that had like these kind of studios as
Mhm.
well. And
Mhm.
so it was kind of like, oh, like it was kind of like clicking, maybe I could do this too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to do this. And then you like
Yeah.
bless me as
Yeah.
well. You made me a brand ambassador for Edge,
Yep.
right? I mean, I'm not no famous, even though I was leading like 75 people on like that mascot thing. Like I got like 75 followers on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like not really, but like, like not a lot,
Yeah.
right? So for you to choose me to be an ambassador for your program, it like meant so much to me, man. Like for your
Amazing.
company, and like so that got me the ice bath, right? And
Mhm.
then I was like leading it, and I was just like collecting more things on my
Yep.
journey. And so that was like from 2023 to
Yeah,
June,
yeah.
pretty much to now,
Yeah.
right? And then in June, I was still working at New York Sports Club. I was
Mhm.
the manager
Okay.
then at that time, as well as personal trainer. And in June, right, I actually got engaged in May. So that was
Sweet.
pretty cool.
Mazel
So
tov.
thank you,
Love
my
that.
friend. And then in June, we came back from Italy, like spending all this money. You can see I got these like nice Italian linen.
Yeah. You cultured.
Got it, baby. And then I just like, oh, yeah, we're getting dissolving your position.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
New York Sports Club.
He's like, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, you're not a manager anymore. I was like, I'm all right, I'm done. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'm at like, it was pretty much like, we don't have a place. We're not funding this position anymore. You could probably do your client still, but
Yeah.
I was like,
Time
no,
to move
I'm
on. Yep.
time to move on.
Yep.
I'm gone. So now I'm like, so I was like, wow, now I'm back. Now
Yeah.
I'm back to square one, right? But that wasn't square one. You know why? Because then I really got deeper into my Wim Hof method practice, and doing more workshops, and doing like cold plunge events, community
Mhm.
cold plunge
Mhm.
events at this gym in my town. I guess like a CrossFit gym. It's called Intrepid. It's a cool
Mhm.
place. I
Mhm.
work out there now.
Cool.
Not as much as I should,
Yeah.
but I'm getting it. And so I just started doing like workshops there. And one of the first one I did, one of the participants who came owns a gymnastics and sports performance facility, also like kind of within the greater town
Yeah.
region. And so I met him, and he had just taken over that business, and he was like, it was the first time he did the cold plunge, and
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
I didn't do the breath work in this, so it was just a cold plunge event. And he loved it, and he
Great.
like invited me to meet him and his partner about opening up a recovery studio within his space.
So cool.
And so I just came in there with like a little business proposal of all the things I wanted to offer, and they just kind of like, liked it. We kind of just ran with it. More discussions came, and now here we are.
Incredible.
business is filed. We're hoping to open December 1st, and we called Nordic Recovery.
Amazing.
Offering, like I said, the cold water therapy, saunas, red light therapy, air compression, all these modalities that has helped me on my journey. Now I'm able to have a space where I can share with others.
Fantastic.
So you never know where those things, like if that
Yeah.
never happened with the job, right, in June, I would have never had the time to do this event, right? Because I wasn't going to that gym. I was working at a gym, so
Yeah.
I didn't need to be a member of a gym.
Right.
But then I wasn't working there anymore, so now I'm not a member of a gym. So now I gotta find another gym. And if
That's the way
that
it
didn't
goes.
happen, right? I didn't have the event there. The owner was nice enough to be like, "Oh yeah, you can have the event here." Would have never met the guy. Would have never
So
been here
good.
to, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like
It builds.
all these different things that happen in your life, all these challenges, all these moments are there for you to meet. Right now, and if you meet
Absolutely.
them, right, and
Absolutely.
you go through them, on the other side of that is where your true treasure lies, right?
Amen.
That's where the gold is. That's alchemy, right? That's changing lead to gold.
I love it. My guy, dude. Well, I'm so excited to
Yeah.
see and to celebrate the studio opening,
Thank you.
and to get my butt out there,
Yeah.
and to see it. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have some edge tubs
Love it,
and
love
all
it.
that
Be
stuff. It'll be
rocking,
good.
and yeah, man. Just want to we're time here, so we're gonna wrap this up. But
Mhm.
just wanted to thank you for coming on, and thanks for sharing your incredible journey.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to be a brother on this journey with you
Yeah.
and to see where it goes,
Thanks, man.
and this next chapter for you. Anything you want to share with the listeners as we
Right.
wrap up here?
Yeah, actually, I got a little poem to share.
Let's hear it. Let's
Let's
hear the
go.
poem. Thank you for the reminder.
So, I don't really share my poems that often, so this is kind
Perfect.
of like another one of those things. Just diving in the deep end, seeing how
Love
it's
it. We
seeing
know
it's
how to
felt.
get uncomfortable, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Ice bath moment.
So this one is called Release Your Shame.
Mm.
Transmute your fear. Doubt and worry have no place here. The anti you crawls under your skin, hoping you won't notice the difference within.
Mm.
Allow for a pause in the train of the ego, and you will see inside of you what you are blind to. Don't just rely on your POV. Take solace in knowing you are part of the whole. With no division between you and I, there's no need to have ever to overcome. There's no battle to be won, no harm to be done. Remember, you are one with all. So there's no need to feel like you won't have or ever be enough. The anti-you is shaken out from under your tongue, where words come out to proclaim, you are you, the only one.
Whew. Aho.
Oh,
Drop the mic on that one. Daniel, my brother,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
What a treat. What a
Thank you.
trip. Great to
Thanks,
see
brother.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Until
See you
next time.